You also advise that they're to practice for 3 kinds of interviews. I love this. The one-on-one, which many of us are familiar with, the panel, which you talked about how you interview with many people, and the Skype. How are those interview practice techniques, I guess, different? How are they different?
Yeah, they're really different. I know when people reach out to me and say, man, I have an interview coming up, I want to talk to you before I go have my interview. And right away I ask them, who are you interviewing with? You know, do you know the names? Do you know the titles? Do you know how you're going to interview? And sometimes I have to go back and ask the recruiter, you need to know what you're walking into, because you can show up and they say, oh, we want you to meet with so-and-so, and then you walk into a room and there's 6 people in there. Oh, to be mindful of everyone's time, we want to make sure, or this person was in town, so we want to bring them in as part of, and you're like, wow. So I would say always be prepared for interviewing with more than one person collectively. But for the one-on-one, that's really easy. That's when you know you can prepare, you can talk to the person, find out about that person, do some research on that person and their particular role. It's so much out there now that you probably can find out more about people than they probably choose to have you know. But just try to, so you can engage in some small talk about possibly what's going on in their life, something they've recently written, or something like that. And then, of course, know all your facts about the company, know all your facts about that particular division of the company and the work. When it's a panel, again, try to find out ahead of time if it is a panel and the people who will be a part of that panel, the roles, and the role that they play as relates to the role that you're trying to pursue. Because the interaction will be a bit different and they'll come at you with questions more around their agenda than your agenda. So understanding collectively, and to understand when you are addressing a group of 6, whoever asks a question, that's who you have eye contact with. When questions are being asked, look at the person, but also kind of scan the room, because body language is huge, and trying to understand that piece. So those are some things I definitely would consider, and try, if everyone is there, if you haven't heard from someone, near the end say, I haven't heard from you, do you have a question? Definitely go back to someone possibly who didn't speak up. And then when it's your turn to give questions or to ask questions, make sure you have a collective question for everyone, and then maybe have 1 or 2 directed specifically if your hiring manager, the person you're going to work for is in the room, but someone else that may have talked about something that really you can really speak to. So it's really, really taking command of the room when you have that. Skype, wow. So Skype or FaceTime or however they set it up, video conferencing, telepresence, whatever you want to call it. I've been in a couple of those situations. One where I had 2 people in DC, I was in Philly, on telepresence, and then 3 people in the room. So you're playing, like you going back and forth. And again, so you use the dynamics of what I shared around the panel, but then you also have to remember to engage with that group that's out in the internet world, in the space, So really it's your body language, and really trying to, because I've seen people really get upset and nervous when they're having to ping and bounce off of people. So you need to practice it. And you can practice that at home, especially if you know any teenager that knows how to FaceTime and had 4 or 5 people on with them. That's an example. They will do well in situations like that. But actually there are places you can go where you can practice this, that have telepresence, and ask them to, if you want to rent the time, if it's a really important role and you're something serious about it. And last thing I'll say about you calling in or being part of a Skype or FaceTime, make sure that your environment in the back is it looks nice, and that the voice levels, you're in a place where voice levels, dogs aren't barking, kids aren't under the table, mommy, daddy, or in my case, at my house, there's always the lawn people that just decide they want to come during that time. So you just have to realize, what's going on and presenting an environment. And that's very different than walking into an office and having a conversation with someone. You have to think of other things that are going on around you that will either distract you or you can't be your best you in that interview. So those are some things.